UFC 256 Figueiredo versus Moreno takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with our early prelim opener of Chase Hooper makes his return against Peter Barrett to open up the prelims. Peter Barrett coming off his loss to Youssef Zalal not too long ago. He survived the distance. That was kind of what we took away from it. Slippery Pete Barrett is sure slippery indeed, because he escaped a lot of bad situations with Youssef Zalal, but that was kind of the only thing we got to take away from that fight, because he didn't really do anything good to impress me other than not get finished by Youssef Zalal. But I feel like also we learned that Youssef Zalal's finishing ability is not too great, in all honesty. He had him in a lot of bad positions that he should have maybe been able to finish, but Peter Barrett was able to escape. Haven't seen him really beat anyone too good, and I feel like Chase Hooper, even though he's very young in his career and he looked quite bad against Alex Caceres, he had a better showing, landed some decent shots against Alex Caceres as well, and Caceres has looked really good, went on to beat Austin Springer and finish him in the first round as well, so he's looking really good at the moment. He's got some momentum. Chase Hooper, the younger guy, I feel like he's going to learn way more in this time off. I would have liked to have seen him taking a little bit of time, but he's taken 6 months, which is a very long time if you ask me. But I would have maybe liked to have seen him get to that reinvention stage of time off of maybe 8 months to 10 months. Give it a little bit more time, but he's stepping back in there. Wants to stay active. He beat Daniel Tamer in the first round with ground and pound. I just want to mention that. Beat Luis Gomez, 9-5, 4-0, 3-0, 16-7. Like, he's beaten some decent guys compared to Peter Barrett, who's fought absolute cans his entire career. I'm going to go with Chase Hooper getting the job done. I think he's big and strong enough to get the submission in the grappling and earn himself a first or second round submission. I'm going to go with Chase Hooper getting it done in the first or second round. He's a massive favourite, by the way, which is very risky, but I'm still going to go with Chase Hooper. Moving on up the card, Dwight Grant versus Li Jingliang. I'm going to be going with Li Jingliang. Okay, but I understand that Dwight Grant is a very, very good underdog here. Even though he's coming off a KO loss 4 months ago, which usually isn't an ideal situation, he's a very good player here. Okay, and he's got big KO power, but we've noticed previously in his career that if you can't get the KO punch off, things get kind of tricky for him in fights. We saw that in the Alan Jouban one, which was very close. Could have gone either way, but they ended up giving it to Dwight Grant. It was one of those fights where no one really won the fight. It was a bunch of nothingness in the fight, but Alan Jouban was coming forwards. Dwight Grant was moving backwards, but Grant barely outstruck him here and there. It was a decent contest, but I feel like things get really close with Dwight Grant if he can't land that KO punch, and I feel like Li Jingliang has got the experience necessary to get him to a decision and win this one by unanimous decision. I like him as a favourite. I just feel like Dwight Grant's a very dangerous one here. So if you're looking for an underdog, maybe go with Dwight Grant. I really think this is a close fight, but I'm still believing in Li Jingliang, mainly because the way that I would pick Dwight Grant to win this one is if I saw some kind of weakness in Li Jingliang's chin. And whatever you say about his performance against Neil Magny, Neil Magny's doing pretty good right now in the division. So Li Jingliang didn't look the best against Magny. Looked kind of cowardly. Looks kind of mentally defeated in that fight, just a bit outranged, outgunned, couldn't find his way on the inside, so he just kind of tried to survive it. But one thing he has shown in his career, which is the one reason I'm mainly picking him here, to tip him over the edge, to picking him, is that he's never been KO'd, and he's never shown signs of a bad chin, really. He's been cracked with some big shots, but he's always taken them well. I think he can take the shots of Dwight Grant and come back, and Dwight Grant coming off that KO not too long ago. I think Li Jingliang is going to get the job done. Still young in his career, 32 years of age, still in his prime, coming to the end of it, but still in that prime. I think he'll get the job done against Dwight Grant. Moving on, up the card, Carl Roberson versus Doucha Lungiambula. Lungiambula making his 185-pound cut from the light heavyweight division, started there, got destroyed by Magomed Ankalaev, said this isn't for me anymore, I'm going to cut my way down to 185. I don't think he's going to get a job done against Carl Roberson, because Carl Roberson has beaten really good competition. I know he lost to Marvin Vettori and he missed weight as well, so everyone's now going to just say that he's trash because he deserves a little bit of abuse right now, I'll be honest with you. The way he missed weight twice in a row is very unprofessional. Staying in the middleweight division, some of the losses in his career are very understandable. Marvin Vettori, whether you like it or not, which I disagree with, was the favourite against Jack Hermansson going into that bout, regardless of what happened in the bout. Marvin Vettori was the favourite going into that. He's a very touted prospect. I picked Vettori to beat him as well. But Carl Roberson has some understandable losses, has some really good wins as well against Roman Kopylov, who was 8-0 at the time, finished him in the third round. Wellington Turman was 15-2, 22-7 Jack Marshman, 7-1 Darren Stewart, finished him in the first round. I mean, Darren Stewart has shown to be a problem to other people on this card that I'm going to get to in a second, but still, Darren Stewart's a problem in that division. He also beat Ryan Spann in the first round by TKO. He has good wins on his record. I just think he's run into some dangerous fights for him, like Cesar Feo with the jiu-jitsu, Glover Teixeira with the grappling, of course. Now Teixeira's fighting for a championship. When Carl Roberson fought Teixeira, it was like, can this young undefeated guy beat this hanger-on in the light heavyweight division? And now Glover Teixeira's fighting for a title sometime soon. Whether it happens next before Adesanya jumps to Q or not, who knows? Carl Roberson's dangerous. I think he'll get the job done against Daucha Lungiambula, because Lungiambula lost by submission to Norman Wessels. He's had some guys take him to a decision where he slowed down somewhat in those fights, but he got the job done in the third round against Daquan Townsend. Against Ankleev, coming off the KO loss, when you're the Terminator and you go forward and kill everyone and just destroy them and blow them out of the water, or they're just cowering away from you and you get KO'd, I think it's going to change his mindset. And I don't know why after getting KO'd, he would choose to cut down to another division 20 pounds lighter. I think Carl Roberson's going to give him a rude awakening and get the job done. Moving on up the card, Sergey Spivak versus I just want to say this. Jared Vanderaa, by the way, is the guy I'm going to talk about. But I just want to say this. I don't like the layout of this card. I feel like one of these fights on the prelims should have been on the early prelims. One of these guys on the early prelims should have got a chance to spotlight themselves. But still, Sergey Spivak versus Jared Vanderaa. Good matchup, heavyweight matchup. I know the heavyweight division is really starting to pick itself up recently. 11-2 Sergey Spivak. Still young in his career, 25 years of age. Seems like he's improving between every fight. Had a great performance against Carlos Felipe. Somehow, judges managed to give that a majority decision. I thought it was such a clear win from Sergey Spivak against an undefeated Felipe, who then went on to beat Jorgen de Castro. Good fighter, Carlos Felipe, proved himself. Sergey Spivak goes out there, gets the job done. Marcin Tybura loss is not too bad. I believe that Marcin Tybura is probably going to get the job done against Greg Hardy, so I'm big on Tybura. I don't mind that loss on Sergey Spivak's career so early on, but then he showed in a Tuivasa fight. His grappling can get him through some stuff, and Jared Vanderaa just hasn't proved to me too much so far, because the guy he was taking on the Contender Series in Hunsucker was such a can crusher. I believe, before I even checked this resume, he has one positive recorded opponent on his resume, and he was 1-0. And other than that, he's fought absolute cans his entire career. 9-14, 15-7, 2-5. I don't understand how this guy can get on the Contender Series, but other guys that wipe through competition on the regionals at M1 and all of these European promotions can't get a fucking look in. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but still, all good. I'm going to be going with Sergey Spivak. I like Jared Vanderaa. He just hasn't beaten anyone that tells me you're going to beat Sergey Spivak. I don't care about 8-5 Elvis Moyo. I don't care about 11-6 Ran Potts. I don't care about 7-7 Ricky Micholas. You know what I'm saying? He's also lost to a couple of guys as well, decisioned, and he has been submitted in his career. I will go with Sergey Spivak being the difference in this fight with his grappling and taking him down to get him out of there in the second or third round. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. He might get the finish. I'm going to go with him getting a finish in the late second or third round. I think he'll wear a bit of a storm early, then go out there, start to wear on Jared Vanderaa and beat him up in the third round, I'd say. Late second or third finish for Sergey Spivak. Moving on up the card, Billy Quarantillo versus Gavin Tucker. Early prelims. See what I mean here? I wish this one would have got a spotlight on the real prelims, but it won't get that spotlight. Okay, Quarantillo versus Tucker. Dangerous matchup. Really close. Really close in the odds. This is basically a pick'em right here. I believe they have Quarantillo as a slight favourite, which I understand, but I'm going to they're both very well skilled. I'm actually going to take this to the attributes that you're going to be looking at here. Billy Quarantillo is the younger guy, just getting into his prime. I believe 31 years of age. He's still got a couple of years left in his prime. Gavin Tucker, 35 years of age. Quarantillo's got the size. He's got the range on the feet as well. He's got great grappling and submission defense. Never been submitted in his entire career, and that seems to be the MO of Gavin Tucker. Take you down, wear you out in the fight, and then eventually you'll open up a submission in the third round. Seems to be his game plan the majority of the time. Quarantillo seems to get better as the fight goes on. I'm just thinking about the matchup here, and I feel like Quarantillo is the kind of guy who can survive the first round, which isn't going to be too crazy with Tucker because he does like to wear guys down. Quarantillo gets better as the fight goes on. I think he wins this fight 29-28. I think we see a close first round, but Quarantillo starts to pick up the pace in the second and third and really start to work Gavin Tucker. I don't think he finishes him, but I will go with Billy Quarantillo getting this one done. Think he's beat better competition as well, even though Gavin Tucker's last win was very good. And I actually picked against him in the Justin James bout because James came out there and blew Frank Camacho out the water, but still, James got real gassed out after that first round and had nothing for him in the second and third. I'm going to go with Billy Quarantillo getting the job done, building as the fight goes on, earning himself a 29-28 close, competitive, unanimous decision. Moving on up the card to the prelims, Tecia Torres versus Angela Hill. Another good one. But I wish one of these ones would have been on the early prelims. That's all I'm going to say. But still, the prelims we go. Torres versus Hill. Good matchup. I'm going to go with Angela Hill. I like Tecia Torres. This is a tough one to predict, in all honesty, because Angela Hill seems to have some stinkers. I thought she should have looked a little bit better against Michelle Waterson. However, I believe she beat Michelle Waterson, which is what I will say. And now we've got Angela Hill technically coming off 2 losses in a row. I think I'm going to go with Angela Hill getting this one done. I like Tecia Torres, though. She's very good, and I did pick her to beat Brianna Van Buren, which she was somehow an underdog against, which I had no idea why she was an underdog. She's fought good competition in the division, only lost to Andrade, Jacek, Weili Zhang, Marina Rodriguez. Marina Rodriguez one does stink a little bit now. We've seen Calvillo lose to Chookagian, and Rodriguez and Calvillo fought to a draw, and Calvillo was getting the better of her in the third round and really starting to tune her up a little bit. But still, I feel like I'm going to go with Angela Hill getting the job done by a close decision. I thought she beat Gedalia and Michelle Waterson. I see her on a 2-fight win streak right now. I'm going to go with Angela Hill, but there's really no telling how this one's going to go because it's a very competitive bout. I'm going to pick Angela Hill to win because I fucking said so. I don't know. She's got a 4.5-inch reach advantage for the division. She's the naturally bigger girl. She's also a little bit older. But after those 2 losses that were actually wins, they're real losses. But they were actually wins. But they're counting as losses, so the hunger's still there to bounce back. I'm going to go with Angela Hill getting the job done by a close, I'd say split decision wouldn't even be a bad bet to make on this one, seeing how women's strawweight fights tend to go often, especially Angela Hill ones. Split decision, Angela Hill. I think she gets it done. It'll be close, though. Moving on up the card, Andrea Lee versus Gillian Robertson. Good matchup. Really good one. I think that Gillian Robertson's going to get the job done by submission finish. Andrea Lee has just shown me that some of her grappling defense is not the best in the world. And when we've seen her lose, it's been for that reason. Roxanne Modafferi was able to do it. Lauren Murphy was able to get some grappling exchanges off. Joanne Calderwood, not really, but still some grappling situations happened. And I feel as though Andrea Lee has shown a little bit of a hole when she does get on her back. She does seem to stay there quite a bit. She's got some good scrambles in her, but just against Roxanne Modafferi, I think Gillian Robertson is a far more technical fighter in that division. I like her to win this one. She's the younger girl as well. Even though Andrea Lee sure looks young, 31 years of age. Robertson's 25, improving more rapidly in my opinion between bouts. Training at American Top Team now. Great gym to be at right now. Great performance in her last one. She was also angry that she didn't get the finish in her last one because she wanted an 100% finish ratio. I think she's going to go for the finish here and get it done against Andrea Lee in the second or third round by rear naked choke, just winning in the grappling exchanges. Even though she got TKO'd by Macy Barber, she was doing good in that fight as well. So I'm going to go with Gillian Robertson by submission in the second and third. Andrea Lee probably should be cut by the UFC after this one. That'll be 4 in a row. But I don't mind. Gillian Robertson is going to win this one by submission in the second round, I would say. Moving on up the card, Mackenzie Dern versus Verna Jandiroba. I didn't know who was going to win this one. I thought this one was really close, I'll be honest with you guys. I really did, okay? Then I saw that Mackenzie Dern was a favourite over Verna Jandiroba. And my interest peaked just a little bit, okay? Because I like Mackenzie Dern. Believe me, I like Mackenzie Dern for some different reasons than her fight skill, but I like Mackenzie Dern, okay? She beat Miranda Marcos, jumped into her guard, a jiu-jitsu specialist. Hannah Cyphers is not a really great win at the moment. Even though she was 10-4 when Mackenzie Dern beat her, she's now 10-7 because she's racked up that many wins that quickly. She's lost to everyone now. So it kind of takes away a little bit of esteem from the Mackenzie Dern loss. Mackenzie Dern's good jiu-jitsu. Verna Jandiroba has equally decent jiu-jitsu, and she's also got some good fight IQ and some good stand-up as well. She beat Mallory Martin, which is a good win to have. Mallory Martin's looking good. Beat Felice Herrig as well, which Isn't really a great win at the moment, but she dominated her and armbarred her in the first round with relative ease. She's beaten a bunch of girls by submission. She beat Mizuki Inoue, who had a close fight with someone recently, I believe, but, you know, still a decent fighter with a good record. Morandin, who was 10-1. She's beat better competition in her career. She's way more experienced. I think she's going to get the job done against Mackenzie Dern by a close decision, 29-28, unanimous to Verna Jandiroba. Moving on up the card, she's got the reach advantage as well, which is going to have a natural advantage on the feet. I think she'll get it done by a close, unanimous decision, having the educatedness enough to stay out of the submissions and maybe even threaten her own, but I think she'll win it on the feet against Dern, 29-28, unanimous decision. Moving on up the card to the prelim headliner, Cub Swanson versus Daniel Pineda. I'm going to go with Cub Swanson here, getting the job done. I know that Daniel Pineda is a very good fighter and I respect him. He's the favourite here. A slight one. Very close fight though. I'm sure everyone can agree. We don't really know what kind of Cub Swanson's going to come back. He's had a long time off after that knee injury, which didn't even happen in a fight of his, by the way. He didn't even get his knee twisted up in a fight. It happened in a grappling tournament against Jake Shields. Really unfortunate to get his leg torn off like that. But, you know, those things happen in those grappling tournaments, which is always the risk that fighters run going, because when someone's going for your leg, you can really tear some things apart there. It's not like a choke where nothing happens if you hold it for a bit too long, but still, I'm going to go with Cub Swanson getting the job done against Daniel Pineda. I like Daniel Pineda, but I think people are just looking at his Herbert Burns win. Burns had a terrible weight cut. That fight really looked bad and also gassed out so quickly in the bout. I think that's somewhat connected. I know Daniel Pineda got the job done. I just see Cub Swanson going out there and tuning him up real bad, because Cub Swanson's looks really good. I didn't see any good wins on Daniel Pineda's record too much. 5-0 Elias Rodriguez in the first round. That's a decent win. That's not killer Cub Swanson. You know what I'm saying? He also beat 8-5, 7-13, 24-25, 11-2, I guess is a decent win. 11-6, 18-12. I don't like him too much, but he did beat some good guys at PFL, but both of them got made no contest because he tested positive for roids. So, I'm going to go with, he tested, I just want to say the fight that he got pulled out of for testing positive for roids, he was facing a guy called Lance, which is very ironic in my opinion, but still, I'm going to be going with Daniel Pineda. No, I'm not. Sorry, he's brainwashing me with his roids. Cub Swanson gets the job done, I believe, by unanimous decision, because Cub Swanson's looked really good against good jiu-jitsu guys, which is what Daniel Pineda is as well. Got great grappling, also got good stand-up, but Cub Swanson looks good against stand-up guys. He beat Kron Gracie, who's a jiu-jitsu guy, covers that base in this fight in my opinion. Shane Burgos also tuned him up pretty well. I think Shane Burgos won the fight. It was a split decision. Shane Burgos won it in my opinion, but listen, Cub Swanson was in that fight, landing some good shots, made it really, really close. I thought Burgos won, but I could see it being a close decision. I was nervous when the decision was getting called. That's how close the fight was, even though I thought Burgos got it done. Also looked really good against Edgar Ortega. He looked good against as well. Looked really good, was beating up Ortega quite badly, and then Ortega catches him in a bad position. I think that Cub Swanson's very underrated. Still quite old, 37 years of age, but then Daniel Pineda's 35 years of age. I think Swanson's going to keep it standing and beat him on the feet to a unanimous decision victory. Competitive, but Swanson gets it done. Moving on to the main card, Junior Dos Santos versus Cyril Gane. Heavyweight bouts. Really looking forward to this one. I think Cyril Gane's going to really badly tune him up. I know a lot of heavyweights have been failing their jumps up recently, with Tanner Bosa losing to Andrei Arlovski, even though I thought he could have maybe got it done, because if you look at the stats, it's very clear, but they don't care about stats. They just care what looks like a big punch. But all good. Cyril Gane is going to beat up Junior Dos Santos, in my opinion. I've just seen him KO too many times, and he seems dumb as fuck, which is really annoying me with Junior Dos Santos, because I like him. He seems like a really nice guy, but go out there and try and change the game plan up a little bit when you're taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Got KO'd there. Got KO'd by Curtis Blades on the feet. Got KO'd by Francis Ngannou on the feet. That's 3 KOs in a row. I think he'll lose to Cyril Gane, who's had a long time off since 2019 December. He's had an entire year to evolve, and he's been trying to book fights throughout this year, so it's not like he's been injured or out recovering something and not getting any good training in. He's been training for bouts in April, Didn't happen there against Abdurakimov because of the whole situation with the Rona. Come back again in August. Didn't get the bout there with Sergey Pavlovich. Come back again in Shamil Abdurakimov in October. Then they tried to replace him with Ante Deliha. Deliha had a contract dispute with his previous organization. That fight gets called off. He's been training. He's going to be in shape. I think he's going to massively improve here as well. And I think we're going to see a year's improved Cyril Gane go out there against Junior Dos Santos and really put some power behind his shots early, in my opinion, because a lot of people don't realise this, but Cyril Gane in his fights in the UFC has been really floaty around. I feel like he's trying to get octagon time, because when he switches it on, he can really easily get it done against good opponents, and I think he will get it done against Junior Dos Santos. He just schooled Tanabosa in their fight. It was competitive. Schooled Dontel Mays the entire distance, then went for it in the third round. It seems like when he wants a finish, he can just decide that he gets it, which is very interesting to see. And before he even came to the UFC, big KO shots in first rounds, really sat behind his shots. I think he's going to start putting some power behind him and really take out JDS in the first 2 rounds by TKO. Moving on up the card, Kevin Holland versus Jacare Souza. For God's sakes, man. I'm going to go with Jacare Souza. And it really hurts me to say that, and I really want that to be very clear here. I like Kevin Holland very much, and I'm rooting for him every single time he goes out there. But Jacare Souza being an underdog is a little bit silly, in my opinion. Kevin Holland has had some really close fights in his career, and when you look back at some of those fights that were close, they don't look better with age, in my opinion. Just going to point that one out. He beat Charlie Ontiveros, but that was a bit of a weird stoppage, if you ask me. I thought he was going to beat him anyway, but you know what? Well, weird stoppage, I guess. I don't really know what to take away from that. Plus, Charlie Ontiveros was 11-6. Let's not forget that. Went to a real close decision with Darren Stewart. I thought he won the fight. I thought he won it 29-28 quite clearly, the first 2 rounds. But that third round, if Darren Stewart lands 5 more shots at the end, that might be a clear 10-8. So I don't know. It's a very close one. He also had a close fight with Buckley, but Buckley took it on short notice. Kevin Holland starched him in both rounds and really got the knockdowns that secured him it, but I've watched it again. Buckley was landing a lot of good shots in those rounds. I like Kevin Holland. I don't think he's going to be able to blow Jacare Souza out of the water, because some of the best to do it don't blow Jacare Souza out of the water, including Jan Blachowicz at light heavyweight. I don't think Holland's going to KO him early. And I could see Jacare wearing on him as the rounds go on, because Holland has seemed to slow down in his fights. We saw that against Gerald Meerschaert. Split decision. Could have gone either way. Gerald Meerschaert is really not, red alarm in my opinion. I know he's improved massively. But the Alessio Di Chirico fight was pretty close. I thought he won that one. But again, some people think Alessio Di Chirico won. It was pretty close. I'm going to go with Jacare Souza earning himself the submission win in the third round. He's an underdog, man. I think that's really silly. Jacare's had a full camp for this. Holland's been jumping around between camps, and I think this is going to be a big factor for why he loses. He's been taking so many fights so quickly between each other. I think he's going to have the Yusuf Zalal effect, which he will learn from. I hope Zalal doesn't come back too soon either. He hasn't improved that I've seen. I think he's accepting fights so often that he's not having that time in between to go to the jiu-jitsu seminars, to go to get your training done elsewhere and try out a different boxing coach for a couple of weeks and learn what you can from him and then take it back to your gym, work on it there, fix it into your team, and then go into a training camp. I think Jacare Souza's going to beat him up. In the second round, Holland's going to have a good first, but Jacare's got a granite chin in his old age. I think he's going to take those shots like he did against Jan Blachowicz, like he did against Kelvin Gastelum, like he kind of did against Robert Whittaker, because that stoppage, Yamasaki really messed up there on that stoppage. I thought it could have been done a little bit earlier, but Jacare was rolling over to get back up. I know Whittaker finished him, and it was a decent stoppage, because Jacare had also already taken so much damage in that bout, really got beat up by Whittaker in that second round, dropped him with a head kick, bunch of ground and pound shots. Looked like Whittaker was going to finish him, but he didn't put him out cold or anything like that. Jacare's got a good chin. I think he'll go out there and earn a submission win in an upset against Kevin Holland. Holland's had some close ones that I don't like, okay? And Darren Stewart, it made it close in the third, man. I'm going to go with Jacare Souza getting it done. Moving on to Renato Moicano versus Rafael Fiziev. I don't even know if this is the order of the card anymore, but apparently this one's the feature fight. Good for Fiziev and Moicano, because they had a rough time. Fiziev got highlight reel KO'd with a spinning back kick to the face by Magomed Mustafayev. Renato Moicano got finished as well, quite embarrassingly, by the Korean Zombie in the first round, dusted up, and both of them had to reinvent themselves, take some time off and look to come back.
Fiziev's performance against Mark Jacare on short notice, in my opinion, outweighs Renato Moicano's performance against Damir Hadzovic. I think Mark Jacare's way better than Damir Hadzovic. I think he's far better than Damir Hadzovic. I also knew that Renato Moicano was going to do that to him, because Damir Hadzovic, I like him. I'm sure he's a good fighter, but he hasn't really, beaten anyone good whatsoever. I don't know how he was in that position to welcome Moicano to the division. I thought they were going to give him a bit of a jump up in competition. He was coming off a loss to Christos Giagos, for God's sakes. But still, I'm going to go with Rafael Fiziev, mainly because I think there's a massive hole in Moicano's game, and those are some body kicks. Moicano stands very tall. He keeps his hands glued to his face at times. He's got very crisp boxing, and he's got good leg kicks as well. He's a very tall guy with not the longest reach in the world for the size that he is. He's kind of Holloway-esque. He's got a bit of a reach, 72 inches. I mean, Rafael Fiziev is way shorter than him, and I think his reach is only 71.5. Moicano keeps those elbows really high up. I think there's a ton of space for those shots to the body with the body kicks. I think Fiziev is going to chew him up and get the job done by decision. I don't know. I'm going to go Fiziev. These are very close fights on this card. I need you guys to be aware of this. It's taken me a lot of thought. But I think we're going to see Fiziev on a full camp, which is ideal for him. He hasn't had a real camp yet for fights. I know he's known about fights for a bit, but it's never really been like, okay, I'm fighting here. I know when I'm fighting. I've had some time off. I've got some time to make a camp out of this. I think he'll go out there and get the job done against Renato Moicano. He even had this camp extended as well. I think he'll take Moicano to a decision, a really close one, but beat him. Jacare's win is really good. Really, really good. Jacare was looking like a beast in that division, looking to make another rise. Fiziev gets it done by a close decision win. Moving on, Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. I'm going to go with T-Ferg. A lot of people disrespecting Tony Ferguson. I feel like a lot of people want me to kind of pick Charles Oliveira here. I'm going to go with Tony Ferg. I really think I am. 12 wins in a row before his last loss, and he cut weight twice within a couple of weeks, which is never smart, but we should have seen it coming. But Gaethje gets it done. Gaethje's a very good fighter in that division. I think Charles Oliveira hasn't really beat anyone too good, and he does slow down in fights quite a bit, and I think people are forgetting that, and I think Tony Ferguson with his chin, which I know some people say might not be the same after the Gaethje performance, because he didn't get KO'd and took all of the shots, regardless of how powerful they are and how many came. I don't see Oliveira going out there and just blitzing Tony out of there in the first round or submitting him. Ferguson doesn't really shoot too many takedowns. Oliveira doesn't really shoot too many takedowns. I think we're going to see this take place on the feet, and they're going to kind of try and rock each other to shoot on them, which is often both of their styles. They're very similar fighters here. Tony Ferguson's going to win it, though, in my opinion. I think he's very good. He looked good against Cerrone, who looked good against Ally Quinter in that division, who beat Kevin Lee, and that's what Oliveira's known for in the division now, even though Oliveira lost his fight to Paul Felder, Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis, Max Holloway. Every single time he takes this step up in his career, he seems to fail it under the big lights. Edgar, Swanson, Cerrone himself, and it was ages ago, and you can't really relate those fights. But I think Tony Ferguson's fought better competition, and he's done really well against them. Both guys finished Kevin Lee later on in their bouts. I think Ferguson wins. And one thing I do want to mention as well, I think Ferguson's going to beat him in the third round by TKO. And I also believe that a draw is a good bet here, because Oliveira might win those first two rounds. I think Ferg's going to maybe win the second one, but Oliveira's got a good chance. I think the first round's going to be Oliveira, maybe close. Ferg's going to come in the second, start beating him there, and then in the third round, he's going to seal the deal and get the TKO and finish. I think that Ferguson beats him. Moving on to the main event. Also, Oliveira. I want to mention this. Oliveira said that he was out until early 2021 because he was injured. The only reason he's taken this bout early and come back in 2020 is because it's Tony Ferguson, and he knows what kind of opportunity this is. Moving on up the card. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. I'm going to go with Deiveson Figueiredo getting the job done. I'm going to do full breakdowns for all of these big fights on the main card, but Moreno, in my opinion, is the dangerous bout for Figueiredo in that division. People keep saying, and the turnaround here is a big deal in my opinion. More maybe so than the skill sets in the bout, because both guys have good hands, both guys have good grappling. I feel like Figueiredo's finishing ability is way better, and his strength and his chin is also way better, and his trust in his ability is a little bit better. Moreno's very good. He has had some close fights in his career. I think Figueiredo's been a little bit more flawless as of recently in his bouts. He's been way more active, so I think the short notice turnaround favours him. Moreno's been very good, but one thing you can't say is that he's been active, so I think this is going to be a little bit of a shock to the system. Moreno maybe gets it done against him. He doesn't, know. I think that Moreno has the best chance. I think that Moreno maybe has the best chance in this bout. But I think Figueiredo still gets it done with that finishing ability in the early rounds. One thing I noticed in the Moreno bout with Brandon Royval is that he shot with his head on the outside very often. Now, that could be because Royval was spinning a lot in the bout, so he was kind of automatically putting his head on the outside because Royval was so off-center. I just don't see him getting it done against Figueiredo because in that Royval fight, he took a lot of shots. People forget about that. He had a swollen lip in his Ariel Helwani interview. He did not go straight back to training. And also, I want to mention this in the Ariel Helwani interview, now that we're on the topic. Brandon Moreno was talking about how he was watching Figueiredo's bouts whilst eating cookies and sweets. Like, Figueiredo had the ball in his court here. Moreno had no idea he was going to have this quick turnaround. Figueiredo knew he wanted to turn around quickly in December and take on Moreno, like before his bout even started with Perez. He's way more prepared. He took way less damage in his bout than Moreno did because Moreno took a lot of shots there with some elbows, some ground and pound off of Royval's back. I think that Figueiredo's going to get it done. Both guys are big for the division. I hate that people say that Figueiredo's so much bigger than these other guys. I guarantee you Moreno looks bigger than him come fight night. I mean, Perez kind of looked bigger than him come fight night. Just because someone's strong and powerful doesn't mean they're automatically big for the division. I think Figueiredo's going to be okay with the weight cut, and I think he'll get the job done by guillotine in the first round because Moreno, in his highlights that I've seen, with his takedowns, he's in that guillotinable position. And that's a Dustin Poirier dream position if you're shooting takedowns on DP. I think that Figueiredo's going to get it done by guillotine in the first round. I like Moreno. I think he's got the best chance in the flyweight division out of all of the current flyweights to get it done against Figueiredo, but I still don't think it's going to be enough. God of War, Dusty Guerra will win this bout because of the guillotine via Walid Ismail. Somehow. I don't know. Like and subscribe. I think Figueiredo wins, to be honest with you. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Goodbye. See you later.